My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from the voodoo. To arms!
You have led the horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got it over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
Already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guests.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to show 73 of Whispers of War. I'm your host Sil, and let's just jump into how was my week in World of Warcraft. It's been a weird week, to be honest. It's been a really weird week, so I'm just checking out my character screen because that's how I often know the best what I've actually been doing this week. And I've done a bit of raiding. My guild is great in carrying me, and they know that. But it's been a lot of fun. We are on Vex still, but it's going a lot better, and I think the fact that we are one-shotting everything and we killed Rathian on the Heroic, and I know for some guilds it's like, oh, easy, we're already on Mythic or whatever, but for us, you know, I think that's really good. For a guild that hasn't existed that long, I think we work really well together and people are really nice. So that is, I think, all positive, you know, it's a very positive guild, and that helps a lot. That makes it so much more fun to raid, in my opinion. So, we're all doing that. I've also decided that I did a bit of an experiment. So, I wanted to see how quickly I could gear a new level 120 to do, I guess not invasions, but you know, the Oldham assaults and those things. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what you would need. So it's not too difficult, actually, because this morning I was decked out in the heirlooms that were only like, what are they, item level 200 or something? I think my item level was around 300, and this was my mage. And then I did a few world quests to get the basics of the gear. I started the offensive to go to Najatar, and instead of, you know, you get the 20 pearls to upgrade your Benthic gear. Instead, I just bought a few items of Benthic gear that I still needed. Use that, so that will boost your item level immediately. And then I spend about 3,000 gold on the auction house on things that are very difficult to get. So those are trinkets and rings, but very cheap ones, but just to keep my item level a little bit higher than what it was. And then I started doing world quests, and you know, the higher your item level gear gets, if you plan it out really well, you can actually then get better gear and better weapons through world quests as well, especially if they are weeklies or dailies that you have to complete, you know, the emissary things. And then I was able to start the assault in Oldham, or Oldham, and managed to get, you know, the big bug that's somewhere there in I guess it's a bit of the north. That also dropped an item, so a piece of gear, and it all adds up. So at a certain point I was like, okay, I'm 420 I think now, and that's not bad. So I thought, okay, this is not too bad. I might actually, before Shadowlands drops, I don't know yet, but I think I might gear some of my characters before Shadowlands, because all the characters that were raised to 120 with Korak, some of them have the PvP gear that you could get with the Marks of Conquest, but some of them have heirloom gear, and I can't really, I mean, I would have to upgrade my heirloom gear anyway to go to Shadowlands, because you know, you don't get experience. But I thought I might as well just give them a bit of a better start and have some gear, because we all know, you know, you power level something and then it's like, oh, yeah, my gear is so bad now that I basically punch, like, you hit something like it's a wet paper bag. You do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, and I don't really want to get frustrated if I decide, you know what, I'm switching completely from rogue to something else now, and then the gear for that character is really, really horrible. So that is something for the long planning. Like I said, I don't know when Shadowlands is being released. We haven't really heard much anymore. So I'm going to think that it's going to probably be winter. It wouldn't surprise me if it's winter. So I have a little bit. That's just, you know, until I hear different, I'm just going to assume that. So I have the time. So, yeah, I have a bit of a plan there. In regards to the odd leveling, I have leveled a little bit when it comes to the two that I really wanted to level, which was my Shaman and my Paladin. But I kind of stopped, because a part of me is like, do I really want to push this now, or do I want to wait until Shadowlands? And I don't know yet. So a part of me is a bit like, maybe I should wait, because I'll get frustrated at a certain point. I always get frustrated around like level 80. But sometimes I'm just done with dailies. I'm not one of those people who will do anything just to get like a 1% upgrade for their gear, or run so many mythics just to challenge themselves. I don't enjoy doing that. I don't mind doing the odd mythic with friends of the guild, but other than that, it's not my thing to push for like the higher keys. So yeah, I stopped that a little bit, and you know, then you start having a lot of time. I've also decided that I need to work on some of my essences. The one essence that I'm really pissed off that I will probably never get is the PvP one, even though it's really good for rogues. There is no fucking way that I can do a rated battleground. I think you have to do. No way. Pre-made. That's never going to happen. So I think I might have to forget that one. But everything else I can do. I mean, I quite like the islands. It's nice to do the islands. Maybe I'll do a PvP island once. I don't know. But yeah, I don't mind doing those. So that's a little bit on that front. And like I said, you know, it's not too difficult to gear your character. You can do it with around 3,000 gold, at least on my server, because, I don't know, but things are relatively cheap. If you want to get a little bit of basic gear and then start doing world quests. You know, it's really what you prefer. I don't mind spending some gold and stuff like that. And that's really it. Of course, love is in the air. No mount. I still don't think... I've seen a lot of posts on Twitter for people who received their mount. So that's actually quite cool. I'm quite happy that all of you guys got your mounts. I'm still not convinced it exists, but, you know, good on you. Yeah, so that's really it. And I am now going to leave you with an interview with the lovely Mr. Ali. And some of you might recognize Ali, the lovely Ali from Dungeon Fables. Her husband was so kind to also be a guest on my show. And yeah, I will leave you with that interview, and then afterwards I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about anything that you answered on Twitter. So I'll see you on the flip side. And today I'm being joined by a completely new voice, so it's lovely talking to a new person. Welcome, Mr. Ali.
Hi, it's good to be here.
It's really nice, because I like it that I have to call you Mr. Ali, because in all fairness, that's not your Twitter handle.
No.
I think, completely. But I love because of who you're associated with, or who you're married to, I should actually say. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your lovely spouse?
Well, I am the husband of Alejandris K, who has the podcast Dungeon Fables. We've been married for almost 6 years now, and we've been together for 8. And I'm very, very supportive of her podcast. I think it's good for her, and you should go give it a listen if you don't already.
Absolutely. And I always love talking to her. So it's really nice to get her husband now. do you want to also tell people your other handle that you go by, just in case that people are like...
Yeah, I go by, most of my gaming names are Sniperfrog or Sniperfrog DX. And there's actually a story behind that. I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, and on the GameFAQs forums, somebody pointed out that the reason why he lost was because of a file hidden in the game called Sniperfrog.exe. And I changed my name to Sniperfrog.exe on Xbox Live. So that way when it would say they were killed by Sniperfrog.exe, and it just kind of stuck.
That's quite cool. I like that. So, what else do you do on the internet? Is there anything that people should know you from? Have you been on many other podcasts before?
Well, I've guested on Morally Gray's bonus podcast, How Have You Not Seen This? Where we reviewed Mean Girls. I'd never seen Mean Girls before, so that was a fun experience.
I want to, like, inside I'm screaming with shock, if I'm honest, but that's me.
I have been on Frazzlecast numerous times, and I recently just guested on Scrubs Versus.
That's really cool, and those are all like amazing people that you've guested on. Do you, now that you have been living with a famous podcaster and you've tasted a little bit of guesting, do you feel like maybe go there, or?
I don't know if I'm ever going to start my own podcast. I work a lot, and my free time is very precious to me. I've thought about doing a gaming stream at one point, but that's never actually panned out. I'm not actually that good at video games. I'd call myself above average at best. But I'm sure there'd be people out there who would like to watch, an above average gamer play. It'd be a little easier to relate with somebody who's not one of those elite gamers and you can never hope to be as good as.
Exactly, and I think the connection sometimes can be better with people like that, because at least, if you're really bad at a game, at least you're like, well, there are other people who are bad at that game, and I don't have to worry about, my gaming skills.
Yeah, and I think I'm good enough that I could be entertaining while at the same time not being so good that you can't relate to me, so...
Exactly.
At this point, it's just a matter of finding time to do it.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's I think the unfortunate thing when you get older, life seems to be becoming more and more busy with things, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm at least pretending to be a functioning adult.
I think we all are. All right, let's take this to World of Warcraft now.
All right.
The one thing that the listeners always want to know: Horde or Alliance?
Alliance all the way.
Ah, how come?
I never really liked the whole, what do you call it? Noble savage aspect of the Horde. It never quite felt me, if you will. And I'm always the kind of the good guy type of person. Most of the faction-based games like Star Wars: The Old Republic, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Ion or Aeon.
Yeah.
I always played the good side, or the good side. And that's just kind of how I am. I like to be the good guy.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. That's how I see a lot of people say why they play Alliance. So what would you say is your main nowadays?
Well, I actually have two mains.
Okay.
My pride and joy and my love is my rogue. I love the stealthy type classes, and rogue just kind of resonated with me right around Mists of Pandaria, and I kind of took my rogue forward as my main character.
Okay. What flavor of rogue do you play?
I will typically level up as outlaw.
Yeah.
But once I get my raid gear, I switch over to subtlety.
Nice.
Ninjas are better than pirates, in my opinion. Sorry, Alec.
Yeah. I'm really sorry, but I have to agree.
Thank you.
And what is your second main?
A brewmaster monk.
Ah.
I actually raid lead my guild as a tank because my friend recently just decided to drop out of the game. He got tired of it, and it happens. I don't fault him for that. But he was the main tank and raid leader for our guild, Kindred Embraced, and he decided to step out, and I stepped into the role of raid lead.
Okay.
So.
A bit of a question. Why would you say that it's two mains? Why not go, oh, this is definitely my main and this is my alt? Why would you put them on the same level?
Because I split my time between them pretty much equally. For me, an alt is somebody that you play when you're done with everything on your main. But I've always wanted to play my rogue more. Circumstances, however, aren't quite letting me do that. So I've dedicated about as much time to my monk as I have to my rogue. And it just... So they're kind of like dual mains.
Okay.
My other characters, you know, they're the ones that I'll log on, do the world quest to kind of get the catch-up gear and stuff like that.
Yeah. So those are your real alts. Do you have a lot of alts?
I have a lot of alts. I'm a bit of an altaholic.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. That's really cool, though. So, do you have any favorites amongst your alts that you're like, definitely, I love more the healing side or the DPS side, or...
I've always been more of a DPS at heart, but I've recently fallen in love with my Discipline Priest.
Okay.
I actually like Discipline healing. I'm terrible at it, and don't rely on me, you'll probably die, but I enjoy it. It's fun.
Well, that's the important thing, isn't it, in the game, that you are still having fun. Okay. So how did it all start for you? How did you start your journey into World of Warcraft?
Well, it was 2004, 2005. I didn't actually play much of vanilla, and World of Warcraft was new, but I was already playing 2 other MMOs, EverQuest, and one called City of Heroes. And I didn't have any time for another one, but I had a friend, his name was Koi, and he was like, I found this game called World of Warcraft, it's really cool, and I was like, I played Warcraft 3, and he said, you can be an orc with a big ass axe. And I was like, well, if that's the only claim to it, I don't really want to play it. And he just kept poking at me until I finally said, all right, well, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Let's see what this is all about. And of course, as soon as I started playing it, he quit. But I stepped into the game, and my very first character was a Night Elf Hunter. Okay. And I was the very definition of a noob Night Elf Hunter. I'm sure you've heard it before. Everything is hunter loot.
Oh, yeah.
Because hunters could equip everything. They could even equip shields, if I recall correctly. And I was like, ooh, I need that. Ooh, I need that. And I wasn't very good at the game at first. But I started actually playing. I made my count back right before Burning Crusade dropped. I think right before the pre-patch for Burning Crusade. And I've been playing ever since.
Wow, so a very long time then.
Yep, I think I created my account in April of 2006.
Wow. It's almost scary, because I'm probably about the same time. It's scary, isn't it? Just thinking about how long ago that was.
It has been a long time. I mean, 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, this is like probably the longest relationship I've had with anything. So... Yeah, no, that is still impressive. I think that's really, really impressive playing that long. When was that moment for you that you felt like, okay, yes, this is definitely my game?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know. I think it's when the first time I stepped into Ashenvale Forest on my hunter, and the music and the atmosphere, it was the most magical thing I had seen in a video game thus far. And I think that's when I actually fell in love with the game. Like, the Ashenvale music still gives me chills.
Yeah. It's so odd, because I, like you, started with a Night Elf, and I remember that music, and also the, especially that music changing when you step into Darnassus, and also like the ambient sound of the lanterns.
Oh, yeah.
When you walk past them. And that is so iconic, I think, for people who start in the Night Elf area, just to remember things like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which it's kind of funny. I haven't played that character. I still have her, and she's still on the original server I rolled her on. But my character right now, my rogue, is a Kultiran, which is funny because I'm all stealthy and sneaky, and I'm playing a big character. And my monk is actually a Dark Iron Dwarf.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, I still have her. I think she's level 78 right now. Never quite finished the leveling process through Northrend. But I don't know, she's still there. I still have a quiver full of arrows that I don't use.
Yeah, those days. Well, let's go back to those vanilla days for a little bit. Were you interested in playing Warcraft vanilla at all, or not really vanilla, but the well, I've completely lost the name for it.
Classic?
Classic.
No, I actually, I'm one of the few people, well, maybe not one of the few people, that's not the right term, but I'm one of the people who thinks that retail is actually a better game. Okay. Blizzard has polished all the rough edges off of the system. I went, I did play. It was free. It is free. If you have a subscription, you can go play it. And I had that experience when I first started playing the game. And I just, as we've discussed, we're adults. I just don't have the time to dedicate to it anymore. And it doesn't have that same magic. World of Warcraft is familiar now. And even Classic, I went into it and I was like, hey, I remember that. And I remember that. There was definitely the nostalgia to it. But it doesn't have that same wonder to it that it did when I first started playing.
Do you think that is because back then it was new?
Oh, yeah.
And something completely different?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was new. It was different. It was unexplored, and everything was an experience, a brand new experience. And this time, it's not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the nostalgia is strong with something like Classic, but I don't think you can ever get that feeling back that a lot of players had back then. But I think always feel like Classic is a good thing of having everyone now has access to it. So when you go and say, oh, back in my day, when people talk about things, or at least refer to things in Classic, that everyone can have that experience now to see what it was like.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you can say, well, go play Classic and see what I went through. I mean, it's not quite the same. This is, what patch did they release Classic on? It was like 1.2 or something, or 1.3. It was after they had done some major revamping of the system, some major balancing. So it's not quite the original experience, but it's close enough that people can get the feel of it.
Yeah, and I think also people have changed in the way that they play games. I think, like you're spot on. It's not like when it first came out, but also when you put someone in there who's been playing. For one, it's a completely different generation. Oh yeah. And you and I, who might have played it from the beginning, we play the game different now. So when you go back to Classic, it's a bit like you use that knowledge of what it was like, but also what you do nowadays. Right. You merge it, so it's not that same experience. And I think for people who never started with Classic and then try it out, they also still play with that whole how BFA and other games play. Right. So it's just a bit of a different experience, I think. Right. Yeah. There's not going to be very many people who are completely new to MMOs going and playing Classic. They're going to take all their experience that they have from other MMOs that they've played into the game, which is going to take that difficulty that Classic or Vanilla had in the very beginning and kind of dilute it. It's never going to be as hard as it was back then. I know, because how many people would make, like, I used to make the mistake, like, oh, this vendor sells white gear. That must be better than what I have, because they sell it, so I'll just buy all of that. Yeah, exactly. And then it's just, the mistakes you made when you were a complete noob they're not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. No, exactly. So I think that the experience will always be a little bit tainted. A little bit. That's a good way to put it. A little bit tainted. Just a tiny bit. When you let's go back even further, because you said that you played Warcraft 3. Mm-hmm. So that, of course, you had a lot of the story and stuff that will come back to Classic and everything, and going back forward to it. Have you purchased or played Reforged? I have not yet. I wanted to in the beginning, but like we said before, I'm an adult and my free time is very precious to me. And I didn't want to spend the money on it, despite the fact that I wanted that meat wagon mount. I still want that meat wagon mount. So it was one of those things. I have a backlog of single player games that's like 20 or 30 games long that I haven't even touched. I mean, I got God of War for my PlayStation 4 for Christmas when it was brand new and it's still in the plastic because I just don't have time to play it.
So I didn't want to spend money on Warcraft 3 Reforged only to have it sit in my backlog again. And then it kind of paid out, and I was kind of lucky in that aspect, in that the release, from what I understand, was, again, kind of tainted, in that the game wasn't quite what people were expecting. So they're going back and fixing it, which kudos to them.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll come up in my playlist at some point, but I don't know. It might not.
Is it, so it's the bad press is not something that would actively make you stop playing?
No, not at all. I mean, it's, from what I understand, even the base game is good for somebody who's never played it before, because they're still going to see it. And those who have played it still get that feeling of, yes, this is familiar. Yes, this is still Warcraft 3. So it'd be nice to play it again, especially considering the fact that I don't have my disc anymore and I can't play the original game.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I think I lost one of my discs and I had to buy it online via Blizzard, I think. For really cheap. I think you could get them for like £5 or something. I don't know how much that would translate to dollars, but it was quite cheap. And then, of course, Reforged came out, so kind of wasted that money. Okay, so that was all in the past. Let's jump into the future. I like my time traveling here. So, BlizzCon last year, I have to say last year now, so bizarre.
Yeah.
They announced Shadowlands, which is going to be released at some point this year.
Yes.
What was your reaction to that?
Cautious optimism.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of details. They just kind of release the information on, this is what we're going to do, but nothing on how it works yet. And I'm sure you've noticed the trend. Every other expansion is a hit. Legion was awesome. Pandaria was awesome. Wrath of the Lich King was awesome. The ones in between kind of fell flat for a lot of people. So, Battle for Azeroth kind of fell flat for a lot of people. So I'm hoping that they put a lot more effort into Shadowlands, and it's one of those, oh my god, wow expansions.
How come you think that, BFA? Because initially BFA seemed to be doing really well, and I hear a lot of people say that the story in BFA is one of the best that we've had. What is it then that still, again, taints it a little bit as a bad or one of the weaker expansions?
The systems, at least for me, it was the systems. There was too much to level up. You had reputations, you had your level, you had the Heart of Azeroth, and then you also had the Azerite gear, which when you first got a piece, if you already had a piece that was completely unlocked, your new piece, despite being a better piece, didn't have any of the traits unlocked, therefore it wasn't worth equipping. There were a lot of systems in it that I just didn't like.
Do you think that they've made a faux pas then with the cloak, now that you have to start leveling again?
I think the whole cloak leveling system is a little bleh for me, but I do like the horrific visions. Those are fun. Okay.
So something similar like that, but maybe not with a reward system like the cloak would be better.
I mean, the Legion Mage Tower is the perfect example. And I equate the horrific visions to the Mage Tower. It's an experience that challenges you, but at the same time, the horrific vision is tied to a progression mechanic. And again, I'm not the best player, and I haven't been able to do a full clear on a horrific vision yet, which I haven't even been able to clear 2 areas yet. And not being able to do that, and my cloak is level 9 right now, and in order to get it to level 10, I have to clear or get 6 pages, and I can get 1 page per clear, which means I have to clear 6 times, and you can only reliably get 4 of those vessels a week. So not being able to clear 2 to get 2 pages, I feel like it's holding me back, and I don't like that feeling.
No, I understand that. It almost feels a little bit like when the war campaign was time gated, or at least there was a gate every time. Like, okay, now we have to wait again because it won't go any further, or there's a rep grind that we have to do before we get anything.
Definitely.
I can understand that. Okay, so with Shadowlands, what sort of things have got you really excited about, or at least more positive for the future?
I'm looking forward to Torghast, very much so. the concept of something that you can continue to progress further and further, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be gated toward progression. If I'm remembering what their announcement in BlizzCon, it was going to be mostly cosmetics and toys and stuff like that. Kind of, again, like the Legion Mage Tower, where it was a look for your artifact weapon. If you had it, people went, ooh, you completed the Mage Tower. But if you didn't have it, you weren't any weaker for it.
Yeah, very true. It will be interesting to see what they've done, because if it's a little bit like with the horrific visions, it seems like they're doing a good thing with that.
Yes.
So if we're going along that way, it will be very interesting. And at least the one thing I found really dreadful with the Mage Tower was that it was always the same thing.
Yes.
You always had to do the same thing on a certain spec.
Yes.
And it was just very, at a certain point, you were like, yeah, I'm done with this now. I don't want to do this anymore. Whereas with this new tower, it seems like it could actually change.
Yeah,
constantly.
they mentioned that it actually changes. Certain things will unlock different corridors. So if you happen to kill a certain rare that gives you a certain ability, you get a different corridor than maybe the last time that you ran through. It's going to be an evolving experience, and I'm actually very excited for that.
Yeah. No, I have to say that after doing the horrific visions, I'm kind of looking forward to that myself, and which I didn't expect. Anything else that you think like that could be really cool? Or
well, I'm a bit of a lore nut, so the fact that we're going to be seeing familiar faces of deceased characters coming back, that's got me really excited.
Is there someone specific you would love to see?
Uther.
Yeah.
I liked Uther so much. He was probably my favorite character from the classic Warcraft story. Warcraft 3.
It kind of would make sense that we might see him there, especially with the, what is it, the Kyrians?
The Kyrian faction, yes.
It would make sense to see him there. That would be really, really interesting.
And, at BlizzCon, they did hint that we might see him with the Kyrian faction, because they mentioned him specifically as the kind of person who would go to that covenant. So...
Exactly. That's going to be very interesting. Just a thing that I'm wondering about now. I know that we're only in February and BlizzCon was, of course, in November.
Yes.
But is it just me that feels a little bit like it's gone a little bit quiet on the front of Shadowlands?
It really has. They haven't released much more information on it. There's some mutterings that the alpha and maybe even the beta are going to start soon, but they haven't given us an exact date on that either. So I have a feeling that the masses are hungry for more information.
Yeah, because I think, before, and I'm not going to be a negative Nancy, but I am going to point things out that I found quite interesting that has happened to Blizzard. Beforehand, we always, every time they said this will be released by this date, they managed to do it. Now, of course, we had the whole Reforged issue that it was already pushed back to a month later.
Right.
And then it came out, people were negative about the bugs and everything, and it felt rushed.
Right.
And it felt like they just halfway went like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Do you feel, just because I'm sort of like devil's advocate and thinking, could this be another one that comes out like this? Do you think there might be a chance, because it's been so quiet now at Shadowlands after BlizzCon, that it might actually not come out this year, but it might be pushed because of expectations the community has, and they've been very vocal about what they think of patch 8.3. And, them already pushing certain games a little bit further now with release dates. Do you think it's still viable to get it this year, or?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to consider there. They said it was going to be out in 2020. So that, honestly, that gives us to the end of the year. They could come out on December 31st, 2020, and it still come out in 2020. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm a veteran gamer, and I've played Blizzard games going as far back as Rock and Roll Racing.
Wow.
Back to when, Blizzard was famous for their soon trademark.
Yes.
It'll come out when it's ready. And I have a feeling that they've kind of let that fall through. I mean, a perfect example is Warcraft 3 Reforged. it came out and it didn't feel done from what I understand. So then they kind of put out a patch to fix some of the things. And if it takes them until the very end of the year to release Shadowlands, but they do that because they want it to be the most polished and best product that they can release, I'm all for that. At the same time, there's not a lot of meat to patch 8.3. There's a lot to do, but a lot of that is in rep grinding and repeatable stuff. Do it over and over again. And with the announcement, Ian saying that there wasn't going to be an 8.3.5, I don't know. It's a tricky balancing point. They either have to come out with Shadowlands sooner because people are going to get bored with 8.3.5 or 8.3, 8.3. But at the same time, running out of content in 8.3 isn't going to be the worst thing, because there's still a lot of stuff that I haven't gotten yet, like raid mounts and pet battle stuff. There's a ton of stuff in the game that I just haven't had time to do. So, I mean, there's a lot to consider there. Yeah,
exactly. And I think, unfortunately, there's so much to do in 8.3 at the moment. And I think, like you said, there's mounts, reps, and all sorts of things that people still want to finish before Shadowlands comes out.
Right.
I think the problem with this one could be, because personally I don't think 8.3 is bad at all, but that's me. I feel like if it could be at the end of the year, let's say the worst case scenario, it's the 31st of December,
right?
We are spending a long time in 8.3, and it reminds me a little bit of the Warlords days, and those were bad.
With Tanan Jungle, Hellfire Citadel.
Yeah, that was very long. Even what was it? Was that Pandaria when we went into taking Siege of Orgrimmar?
Yep.
That took that was so long, and that I think that is where you have to, as a company, watch out for, because your players will return with the new thing, but you don't really want to see the numbers dwindle so much because people are bored.
Ultimately, I think a lot of players forget that Blizzard is a business. And, I mean, they're making a game, but they're also looking to make money. So, from a business perspective, if you wait too long to release the next content, you're going to lose numbers. And there are some people who won't come back. Like my buddy, like I said, the raid lead from my guild, he said he's not coming back for Shadowlands. We'll see. But he said he's not coming back, which is sad. But I mean, he's a good example. There are players who, I'm done with the game, I'm not coming back. So, Blizzard has to look at those metrics too.
Yeah, I find it sometimes a little bit worrying to see where they're going. And don't get me wrong, I'm the first person who I can call myself a consumer whore, because I am. As soon as there's something like, oh, you want a pet, I'll get it. And they've done so many things in the past when you could see that they needed the subscribers and they needed that commitment from their subscribers. And I'm thinking just about back in the day, I think it was around Cataclysm that we got the 6 month or the year pack. If you would subscribe for a year, you would get Diablo, you would get Tyrael's Charger. And I was one of those people who went like, I don't care, I'll play it, I'll buy it. Right. And they seem to be making a trend of that now, because first it was the ship, I think, that you got.
It was the ship.
And now it was Squeakers.
Yep, Squeakers. And then they do it with that, I forgot what it's called.
Oh, the
Silverian Dreamer?
Yeah. And I'm a little bit like, well, they've just done it with Squeakers. Is that because they know 6 months, that's something we need to make sure that those people will lock in at least for the next 6 months? Or, I don't want to be that negative person, but I'm always a bit like, that is a weird trend that they started to do for them.
It's one of those things. I'm going to use microtransactions in general as an example. If they didn't make money off of it, if they didn't show positive results, they wouldn't do it. So I'm pretty sure that with the ship, with the Dreamer, and with Squeakers now, they're getting results. They're getting money. They're getting 6 month commitments, and they're able to tell their stockholders that, hey, look, we have these people committed for 6 months. And I'm not knocking them for it. It's a business decision, and I'm happy with those mounts. I mean, the Silverian Dreamer has become one of my favorite mounts. But I think it's clear to me that they're doing it for that reason.
Yeah. Well, I can only hope that we'll get Shadowlands a little bit earlier. When it's finished, of course, because I don't think we want something that comes out that's not finished.
Exactly.
And I have a suspicion they can't really afford that.
Yeah, they can't. They can't release another expansion that is ill-received. So
yeah, I think there's too many competitors out there at the moment who would love to scoop up all the subscribers for their games. So yeah, it will be interesting to see. Okay, well, let's hope that we'll get something soon. Even if we get some news on Shadowlands, that would be good.
yeah, even just news.
Yeah, it's just very quiet. Okay. Now, we already talked a little bit about the covenants in Shadowlands. Are there certain covenants? Because I know that we're playing for the entire storyline anyway first, so you don't have to go, well, I'll go with the vent here first, and then I won't know what's going on with the others. But
Right.
if you had to pick, do you already have something like, yes, this is where my rogue will go, and this is where my monk will go, or what would you say?
Well, based on the information we have now, I think it's too early for me to decide. They said each of the covenants is going to have a different gameplay ability.
Yeah.
And they kind of touched on it at BlizzCon, but they didn't really give that much detail. So I don't think I think it's a little too early for me to decide. My rogue's gonna go with the Arden Wield because I want this ability because I don't know what I'm gonna be getting. But,
so for you, the abilities are much more important than, for instance, the what sort of story or background for the areas.
I wouldn't say much more important. At the same time, the ability has to be fun. I mean, I'm not going to pick an ability that I'm not going to like. If we had to base just on looks, it's either going to be Arden Wield or the Kyrian.
Okay. Would it change if Uther was definitely there?
Oh yeah, if Uther is definitely in the Kyrian Covenant, I'm going to go there.
Okay. So of course they're also changing the leveling completely, the system.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm excited. It's been a long time since I've had an alt be able to complete an expansion leveling experience. Like, you're going through Burning Crusade, and I'm done before I'm done with Burning Crusade before I finish Zangarmarsh.
Yeah.
And going back to what we talked about earlier, Burning Crusade was my first full expansion, first full World of Warcraft experience, and I miss Shadow Moon Valley.
Yeah.
I miss Netherstorm. I miss those zones, and I don't get to experience them anymore.
Yeah, it's true, because you basically skip them, don't you, at a certain point? It's just like, well, I'm done with it now. I'll just go somewhere else. Okay. Well, if you would have to say that you were getting a new alt now with Shadowlands, and you're like, okay, I'm going to level this one from level... I think it's basically level 10, isn't it? That you start to level. What would your route be?
Well, I'm definitely going to check out the new starter zone for sure. I was almost inordinately excited about that when they announced it, because I've experienced all the starter zones over and over again. So I'd experienced the new starter zone, and then of course I'm going to start in Burning Crusade. That's my home. That's what I started playing the game with, and that's the most nostalgic and has the most happy memories for me. Yeah.
Do you think if you would have completed the Burning Crusade area completely, is there another one that you would jump to?
Probably, I'd say the Cataclysm leveling experience. I quit about halfway through Cataclysm. It was my first big break, mainly because the guild I was playing with kind of dissolved, and my friends quit, so I quit. And that's when I went on to Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yeah.
But then I came back for in the middle of Pandaria. I mean, it's World of Warcraft. It's my home. I came back to it. But I haven't completed the Cataclysm leveling experience, and I'd like to see that one through to the end at some point too. Okay, and I think that's fair enough. I know a lot of people have opinions about the Burning Crusade and Cataclysm, but you know what? I think because they've been... so many people skip them, because they've been so negative, I think actually now it might be really interesting to do them again, just to experience them now and see what it's like. Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Right, let's go. You already said that storyline and lore is quite important to you. How do you feel about the factions now that we sort of have peace? And when I say peace, it's more like we're at a truce at the moment because Sylvanas fucked off. So
Right.
there's no one really to attack at this point in time.
Right. They're not fighting.
Yeah.
Doesn't
For
mean that they're
once.
at peace. They're just not fighting.
Yeah.
I like it. I think that the whole faction conflict thing has been played out. I understand it's World of Warcraft, but at the same time, they always go back to the whole world-shattering threat that we have to unite to break. And afterward, it's like, well, why don't we've proven that the factions can work together? Why don't they just keep working together? You don't have to become one faction. You can still have the Horde and still have the Alliance, because there's always going to be that grumbling. Humans are never going to like the Orcs or the Forsaken because they have there's bad blood there. And the Blood Elves are never going to like the humans because of what the humans did during, the Frozen Throne storyline. But, I mean, there's no reason to fight anymore.
Okay, but because of those reasons, there would still be a need for the divide in the factions.
I think so.
Do you ever see that a third faction would be a possibility?
I think that it could be a possibility, but personally, I don't want to see it.
Okay.
I was talking with Ali earlier this morning. I think Blizzard has to devote too much time to splitting the two factions apart and giving two unique storylines to really put their polish on the game anymore. Like if they could have kind of one, I don't really want to call it one faction, but if there's like one storyline, one experience, despite your faction, I think that they could do a better job telling a cohesive story. Because, I mean, in Battle for Azeroth, on Alliance side, I had no idea why we were going into Uldir. I had no idea. I mean, yeah, there's bad guys there, and it's a problem that needs to be cleaned up, but what's the storyline behind it? And it wasn't until I started leveling a Horde alt just to see what was going on that I understood, oh, the old gods are actually screwing with things here. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, they seem to have made it a little bit more clear what's going on with the factions on both sides, no matter if you only play Horde. Even though I do feel that sometimes we need a little bit more, and that is what the books give us. Not that I feel like we should be reading the books just to understand what the game is telling us.
Right.
But it's that fine line, isn't it?
It's that fine line, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's go to the people in World of Warcraft. What has the Warcraft community meant to you?
It's friends and family. Some of my best friends I've met through World of Warcraft. I've been friends with somebody from the very beginning of the game. The first time I played, never met the guy in person, but we're still friends.
Wow.
And I met another friend on World of Warcraft that I actually invited to my wedding, and he drove all the way out from Texas to come to my wedding.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's ultimately it's community. It's and I the guild I'm in right now, Kindred Embraced, is one that I met. The people I met, the guild is one that my wife Allie was in when we got together, and at the time I didn't have a guild because the guild I had been with, like I said, it had dissolved during Cataclysm. And I got dragged in to Kindred Embraced, and I've been with them since. I know those people very well, and we've had our share of conflict within the guild, but ultimately I see them as family.
Well, and which family don't you have conflict now and again?
Exactly.
All right, I like that. That's really nice. That's amazing. Okay, a little bit of a weird one. So, if you have to pick your favorite in-game food, what would it be?
I had a fondness for the pre-nerf bear tartare.
I've heard stuff about that.
It made things really easy. Yeah, it didn't give you a stat buff or anything, but when you'd kill something, you ran really fast, and it was just fun.
I do miss food that gives you, like, I mean, we have the what is it, the Northern Foggers and things like that, or the food that changes you into, is it a pirate? I can't remember.
It's a pirate or a ninja. It just is randomized. Deviant Delight?
Yes. I think I think we need more certain things like that. Just something different, not just stats, but also, like the run speed or...
Fun food. Exactly.
Okay. Right. We come to the final question, which is an odd one, and because you're a brand new guest, you're going to have to submit to it. I'm sorry
That's
to
fine.
say. So I am very curious to know what your whisper is, and for those who don't know what a whisper is, it's a field experiment. That's what I'm just going to say about it. But also, it's anything really. Maybe a wish that you have for the game, or game mechanics you want implemented or changed, a bit of theory crafting about the story, anything really. So what would your whisper be?
Well, I mentioned that I'm an altaholic. The server we're on, Elune, I've filled full of characters.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see more alt friendliness in the game.
Ooh. Any ideas of how?
Oh yeah, reputation, account-wide reputations. If I've gotten exalted on one character, I don't want to have to get exalted on another one to get the same benefits.
You want to see it on all of them. All those bars need to be full.
Yeah, and I mean just more account-wide stuff in general. Instead of it being soul-bound per character, it's bound to you, to your account. So that way you can spread things around your characters and you can play who you want. And then, based on that, going on that, a little bit less RNG.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that right now there's a lot of RNG involved. They've gotten away from the whole Titan forging, war forging mechanic, which I'm happy, but they replaced it with the corruption.
Yeah.
And not only do you have to get lucky to get a corruption, but now you have to get lucky to get the corruption that you want to get.
Yeah. I can't but agree. I think that is... You hear that a lot. You're not the first person who says that, so... Let's hope that they listen with Shadowlands.
It sounds like they might. At BlizzCon, they mentioned that once you've gone through the story with one character, you don't have to go through it again to get to the point where you can pick a covenant. You can just jump right into picking a covenant. Which
is good. I think that saves a lot of time.
That's a good step forward.
Considering how much of Nigeria we constantly had to do.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Alia, thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
Thank you for having me.
It was lovely talking to you. If people want to reach out to you and get into contact with you, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at SniperFrogDX. And you can find me on battle.net at Sniperfrog number 1722.
Perfect. I'll make sure that also gets put in the show notes.
Thank you.
Just in case you don't have your pen and paper, I know some people listening are like, I can't quickly do that. So it will all be in there. But thank you again for being an amazing guest. I love talking to you.
It was wonderful to be here. It was nice talking to you too.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. It's always nice talking to a new person. If you want to be a guest, whether you've been on the show before or you are a brand new person who's never been interviewed before by me, feel free to send me a direct message, probably over Twitter, that's best. So just send me a message over at whispers_of_war. And we'll make this work. I have lots of people from America and from Canada, so I don't see why this wouldn't work, even though I'm in the UK. So Twitter, I just realized I haven't really asked for a question of the week, because it's been such a weird week here. So I guess I need some question ideas to ask. So if you guys have any ideas or any suggestions, send them my way. And I'll try to come up with something for next week, at least, if I haven't been quick enough. So that's really it. There's one thing I want to maybe share with the world, and that's just something that happened here in the UK. And I know for a lot of people, the media, they don't care so much, but I do feel like it's important, because we're all You know how people can be keyboard warriors over the internet, especially on Twitter. People and in-game, people feel they're anonymous and that they control other people and be horrible and just say whatever they think they can say, whereas they would never say anything like that to a person directly facing them, because it would have consequences. And I feel that, especially in the light of day of what happened in the UK over the weekend, I feel like we need to be a little bit nicer, and this has been quoted a lot, so if you can be anything, then just try and be kind. And I don't think that's a bad thing to live by. So instead of breaking people down, maybe you should just, if you don't agree with something, just don't say anything and just leave it at that. But yeah, try to be kind to each other. And that's really it. That's what I want to give. And if you want to know what the whole thing is, it has to do with Caroline Flack and her suicide. So I do feel that we as human beings all have to be responsible for what we do on the internet. So that's really it. I want to wish you all a very fun week in World of Warcraft. And I will talk to you all next week. So yeah, of course I forgot almost something. Where can you contact me? That might be a good idea. So you can find the show on whispersofwar.podbean.com. Go to dragonpoweredstudio.com/Discord if you want to join the Discord. Twitter @whispers_of_war, or my personal one, McMonkeys with a Z. Email whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com, and Twitch is twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs. And that's it. Enjoy your week, guys. I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.